We'll be doing a pinball animation similar to that one later on in the tape. But first, let me say hello and welcome to VidZeen 2. I presume it's, for most of you, a welcome back because you're veterans of VidZeen 1. For those of you who may not have seen VidZeen 1, as a sort of a commercial for you, and as a review for you VidZeen 1 graduates, I want to go back and briefly touch on some of the major projects we did together in VidZeen 1. From Disk A, we loaded a background and some brushes, and we made a simple collage and then animated it. We created another collage and used it as the background for a lesson on using MBZ crawl. And we discussed using brushes to anti-alias titles by hand. We introduced the 160-point video font dot sign, and we made it into an animation including some graphics. We covered the basics of using anim fonts, including MBZ's own firework font. And we learned more about anim brushes by making another animated collage using art from the disk set. Range and F5 were used to make animated shadows, and the program Palette Play manipulated colors in real time. Then last, and perhaps also least, what VidZeen 1 would be complete without Bob, the world's most persistent cowboy. And finally, remember rows on lace, where we colorized the rows. Well, thanks to Jonathan Brooks of West Hollywood, California, for sending in this animated version of that graphic. It's an appropriate animation for saying thanks. Thanks to every one of you who bought VidZeen 1, who bought stock art, who returned your questionnaires with encouraging comments and with suggestions. Without your interest and support, there wouldn't be a VidZeen 2. Thanks even to those of you who had criticisms. A very few of you criticized the lack of production values in VidZeen 1. But these tapes aren't low-budget productions. They're no-budget productions. And I've made a conscious decision in VidZeen 2 that the improvements will not be for the sake of appearances, but for one reason only, and that is to help you learn more. Another criticism, and I think it was a good one, is that I went too fast. You're right, I did go too fast. But I have so much to cram into just 2 hours that I have to go fast. Remember, this isn't a TV show where you're limited to just one viewing. Use those VCR buttons to watch the parts over and over, and plan on watching this tape more than once. So thanks again to all of you who had suggestions and criticisms. You prompted me to make a number of changes. I won't dwell on them here. You'll see them soon enough. I said in VidZeen 1 that I wasn't the world's greatest depainter. Well, I'm still not, but I've learned a lot, and I have a lot of new things to show you. We started out VidZeen 1 with a simple and fun collage. Let's start this tape with another collage project. Here I've loaded a picture which I digitized from a TV game show. A lot of devices now will digitize from live video. If you have one of these, the question is, should you digitize from a broadcast signal, if you have a choice, or from a tape of a broadcast signal? Well, digitizing from a tape has some advantages, like selecting the frame you want, but if you have a choice, you should digitize from the live broadcast signal. It's much steadier than even the signal from a top quality tape deck. Same thing with a signal from a camera itself as opposed to from a tape deck. Well, I've done some blanking out already. I've taken out one of the contestants, and I've removed the names from the screens here. But we still need to get rid of some heads before we can use it. Press B, and we'll use the background itself to sort of erase the guy. Pick up a hunk of the background and press F10. We'll do the same thing to this guy. Pick up a hunk of the background above his head and move it down. Stamp it over his head. Press M to get a closer look here. Pick up a smaller hunk, move it down. Pick up a square of that. Stamp it down. Finally, press comma to pick up color, period to use the smallest drawing brush and get rid of that ring around the collar there. M, have a look at this guy. Do the same sort of thing with him. Press M again and we're ready to go. Press B again. Pick up the middle of the screen as a brush. Stamp it over here to cover the name there. And we have the picture which is saved on your disk A as the blank game show picture, with one small exception. The palette on the picture on the disk is actually different than the one you've seen me working with. If I press P, you can see that the blues I've used are highly saturated. In this VidZeen, I've decided to try to change those when I actually have them on the screen as much as possible, because these colors make it difficult for you to see what's going on. So if you see a discrepancy between the colors in the pictures on your disk and those on the screen, that's the reason why. And you'll see why here I need the highly saturated, because I'm going to load that old standby from VidZeen 1, disk A, for use as one of the heads. And of course we remember from VidZeen 1 that any unwanted color positions in the palette should be filled with a color very unlike the colors in the brush that we are using to remap. Yeah, remember that guy. Press minus to resize him down, to shrink his head to about the size we think it should be. And when in the collages on VidZeen 1, we always combine them by getting in a regular brush, remember, and stamping that over the head when we put it down, and that worked well. But there's another way, and that is to use fix. So stamp him down, and you can see his neck there covers part of the collar. But that isn't really going to be a problem, because press dot and M. When we erase what we stamped down, what we reveal is underneath the background, because it was fixed. So there, just that easily, we have one of our contestants ready to go. Notice that the outline is a little bit harsh, though. It doesn't look like he really belongs. Why? If we go back and magnify it again, press the cursor arrows to center it, and we can see why. Look at this, the shoulders here, which were a part of the original image. You can see the anti-aliasing that was done. Well, we don't have that here with the part we add. It's sharp, the contrast. So to soften that and make this look like a natural part of our collage, free the background, pick up a small square of a brush using the B key, and press F6. Watch what happens then when we press down the left mouse button and draw with this brush as F6. Look at that. It simulates, in this case, the anti-aliasing which your device, which you used to digitize your picture, would have done. And we can see, you probably can't see this as well on TV as you'll be able to see it on your monitor when you do this on your Amiga, but that really makes this head look like it belongs in there with the rest of the picture. Here, to save time, I've already picked up and saved a brush consisting of the microphone stand and top part of the podium there. And on the spare page I've loaded a picture, another picture from your disk. I pressed B twice and we'll pick up an irregularly shaped brush of this head, including in this case the neck. We want to get that too. Jump over, press H and then minus a few times until we get it down there sized about the way we want it. It's still a tad too large maybe. Press Shift Z and holding down the Shift key, resize it proportionally, just a pixel or two smaller, and stamp it down. Now let's, again, the edges are sharp, so let's press M and pick up a small brush and do the F6 trick again. Remember though, if you're going to do that with pictures you've digitized, you first have to make sure that you've made a range of the colors that you want to use, and that you are the foreground color you've selected is one of those in that range. So press F6 and we go around the edge a little bit to make this head blended in with the background. Now let's jump back over and press B once to pick this up as a square brush. We'll show you a couple other little tricks of collages from digitized images. Press H and size this one down to about the right size, to where it looks like it fits in with the others by pressing minus and equal until we get it just about right. Now fix the background again like we did before and stamp him down to where he's about the right height. Now press D to draw, and using the right mouse button, trace around him. Remember in VidZeen 1 we discussed removing images from their backgrounds. We're doing the same sort of thing here by using Alt F. Now once we've traced all the way around him, press F while holding down Alt, press the right mouse button, and we get rid of the background very easily. Free the background. Once again, let's do the thing with F6, especially where there are sharp edges. I'm using the N key to move around. Perhaps you've seen the tape where Dan Silva, the author of Deluxe Paint, is interviewed, and he talks about using the N key to move around and magnify. It's very helpful. Press M. And now is when we need our brush of the microphone and the little light thing that comes on when they press the buttons. You stamp that back down, and as a final touch, select the brightest color there and an appropriate drawing tool, and let's have the contestants write their names in. Vary the handwriting a little bit here, like they would have it on the real show. And we've created our own little game show. Gosh, boy, I hope that there's a category about D-Paint. I might have a chance. Oh no, they're all the categories are U.S. presidents. No wonder these guys look so happy. Let's make some changes. Let's get rid of that guy in the middle entirely. Press B twice and pick up the lower right hand corner of that Y there. To erase something, once again, what we want to do is actually draw something else over it. So stamp that down there. Pick up a brush up here and we'll get rid of this guy. It doesn't have to look real good down here because this is going to be covered up later anyway. Press period and comma, and we'll clean this up a little bit. Get rid of that last, press comma again, get rid of that last microphone part. Press B twice and let's pick up the, I don't know, the podium, or I don't know exactly what you would call that on a game show, but let's pick it up and press space bar. We got it. Jump over and save it. Load the brush once again, the microphone that we saved. Need that later. Load the anim brush. M jump. Set the number of frames to 25. And I'll show you why 25 when we set the number of, look at the settings in the anim brush, there are 13. Set this to the yo-yo direction so that it can play 13 and then reverse itself and play the next 13 backward. Shift 1 to make sure we're on the first frame. Stamp the guy down. It's always press U to get rid of him, and Shift M to go to the move requester. We want to play it for all 25 frames, so press draw and it will begin drawing. Okay, it's finishing up, and press dot, so we're drawing with the dot again. You VidZeen 1 veterans can probably guess what we're going to do now. We can pick this up and stamp it down in front of all the frames, but before we do, let's make one other change that I particularly want to see here. Pick up that 9, jump back over. This guy doesn't have 100, he has 99,100. Pick it up. Make sure we're on frame 1 by pressing Shift 1. Stamp it down. We don't have to merge it. Another way to do it is press Shift M and tell it to draw it there. 25 frames worth in front of the guy as he jumps. Okay, we skipped some of the boring part, finishing up the drawing. Press D and Del to get rid of that cursor. Make sure we're on first frame by pressing Shift 1. Press 5. Yippee! Well, let's slow him down a little bit. Down to, about 12. Press 4 and we can see the victor jumping for joy here in our game show. Don Pardo, tell him what he's won. Here I've created a high-res screen from characters from the font Big Block, which is on your disk A. Before we type in some things using the font, let's talk a little bit about some of the characteristics which make it useful for video work. Press B to pick up the letters as a brush. Jump over to the spare screen. Things happen a little more slowly here in high res. This font can be resized with good results. But as I do, I press minus to resize it. You see we get you're probably pretty familiar with this message, especially if you only have half a meg of chip RAM. And a lot of you people, I was talking to Joanne Harris from Phoenix, where they have an active Amiga group, and she was talking about it. She only has a 1000 with a half a meg, and says that she has difficulty doing some of the things because of that. Here's one little trick that might help. Press H and it resizes it down to half, and then instead of resizing smaller using minus, resize larger using equal sign. And it does have enough memory to do that. And we see the point we're trying to make originally is that this is one font you can resize with good results. You can resize it smaller, as we did there, and you can even resize it larger. To do that, well, let's step down to interlace. Let's show how you can use it in another resolution. Press H when we get down there, and you see that it's converted to interlace, but it's distorted in size. Now press Shift Y, and then press F10, and you can see that restores it to the original proportions. You can do that to convert this brush or any brush between resolutions. To demonstrate that again and show what this looks like even in low res, let's stamp it down, pick it up as an interlace brush. Press A to get our requester back. Go down to low res, press F10 and Shift K to clear the screen. Press H, this time Shift X to make it twice as large, and we're down in low res, and you can see the font itself still looks good. The picture of the guy doesn't look that great after the transition. And you can resize smaller by pressing minus. Shift B to get back to the way it really was, and then again H and Shift X. You can even resize it a little bigger here, and still doesn't look too bad. Shift B again, and then H and Shift X, and center perspective. Press 2 a few times to get an angle there. Stamp it down. We can see it when it draws it at even at an angle, resized and in low res, still doesn't look too bad. Let's change the background color. A font that can be used in different resolutions, can be resized smaller and even larger, and can be rotated with good results, is particularly useful for animations, as you might guess, and maybe we'll try one of those later. Here we are back in high res, picked up the word block, and press equal a couple times, and you can see that it resizes pretty well in high res. Looks pretty good. We can stamp that down, fill up the screen with it, and use it in a way both as text and background, especially when press P once again we turn the background color down to a lower color. Back to the picture, let's look and see how that shading effect of the edge of the letters was done. And obviously it was by using colors 1 through 7 here, which are graded. Press M again. What if we wanted to make this edge, this graded edge, twice as large? Picked it up as a brush, press Shift H, and it's twice as large, but we lose the smoothness of the grading there. Press M again. Obviously there would be a way around that. We have 8 colors over here we could use, and so we could make the grading smooth again, but let's say we don't want to use those 8 colors, we want to use them for something else later. There's another way to do it. Go up here and skipping every other pixel, stamp down some dots. Press B and pick them up as a brush. Press P, make sure we have a range from color 1 through color 7, and that we're drawing with a foreground color in that range. And press F5. It's amazing how many things you can do with F5. Then alternating between the left mouse button and the right mouse button, go up the edges there, creating what you would call checkerboarding or cross-hatching. And if you look over here, you can see that miraculously the edge, the grade there, looks much smoother. Pick the pattern up as a brush. Go along stamping it down, and we can see that the lines have been turned into a smooth transition. It works great, but there are some problems with using checkerboarding or cross-hatching. Press M and back to the middle, pick up a brush here which shows both sides, and we talked earlier about resizing these letters. Press M a few times, or press rather minus key a few times, then M, and we see that as we resize it, it sort of loses its checkerboard pattern. Same thing happens. Press Shift B to get it back, or to pick it up again. As you go larger, it also it doesn't look so good. If you rotate it, press Enter. A couple more times and stamp that down, and D and dot to get back to regular drawing mode and look close. It looks splotchy. It doesn't retain the checkerboard pattern when you change it by either resizing or by rotating. So if you plan to animate your letters or your pictures or whatever, or if you plan to resize them very much, be careful about using the cross-hatching or checkerboarding, although it can be very effective in other instances, especially in high-res where you're limited to 16 colors and you could often use some more colors. Let's do some typing in this font. So press Shift-T, get the font requester, type in the name of the directory where your fonts are stored. In my case, I put them in RAM, and it's called Big Block. It's 160 points high. Press T, the left mouse button, and caps lock. There are no lowercase letters in this font, and you can type in the font then. Press carriage return. When you hit space, you get a character like that. Press escape to get out of text mode, then B. Let's get that stuff out of the middle for now. We'll use that later. With this, you can, with this character, you can make lines and so on. Pressing B, we can put together in different ways. And if it has a brush, press X. And holding down the left shift button, you can draw a line with it. And even press B and use the right mouse button to clear an area. You can make it like a little frame by picking up pieces from the letters. Press X. Make sure it's on a line with that by once again using the left shift button. The tops and bottoms aren't identical, therefore you can't press Y and necessarily expect to get good results. So with this font, so you'll have to get the tops and bottoms from the tops and bottoms of the letters. But you see here how, oops, by taking parts from the letters you can, well, I could have done that quite a bit more neatly, but you get the idea that using magnify and taking your time you can create your own letters and lines and so forth to combine graphics and other fonts with this. On the spare page here I've created a background by typing in the font and using a brush to copy it. Notice here how I've changed the palette. We'll be using color 8 as part of the background, and I've basically copied color 7 to 8, made 8 a little bit darker. We'll need that for shadows later on because we'll be using F5, and the shadow of this color should be this color. And the background color is the darkest of all, just a shade darker than this one. And I've made the last 7 colors here shades of green, and you'll see why later. Load the brush from your disk, $1, and we'll see that it doesn't look too good, so of course we have to remap it, and that's what the range of greens are for. Takes a moment to remap. It's also out of proportion, so we make it proportional by H and then Shift X, and it looks pretty good. Press P and let's make sure that our range goes from color 1 up this time to color 8. Press comma and click on one of these colors to make sure that our foreground color is one of the colors in that range. Press equal. So we're going to make a shadow. We want our shadow to be slightly larger than the object which casts the shadow. And F5. And using the left mouse key, stamp that down. You see we have a shadow. Press F1 and Shift B, H again, and Shift X to get our original brush back, slightly smaller than the shadow, and stamp it down. Press dot. Now remember in the space we have those little things in there, and what those would be for is to make the curved shadows, because it doesn't look very realistic with straight shadows where there are curves on the letters. So those little shapes over there can be used for that. There are different ones for putting them on the side and on the tops and on the bottoms. Press Y there. You can use F5 also, as well as the colors of the shapes. Just finishing up this process here. And when we're all done, yeah, pretty realistic looking shadow cast there by the dollar bill. Over on the other page, one more thing, let's save that and comma, Shift R. That of course can be used as any kind of a shape you want to build your own shapes. What this is, before I forget, is a little emboss thing to where you can make sort of embossed looking things on these on the faces of these. Pretty easily done by using the parts here. Just get the little parts and get the top of that now. Press M and Shift R to block out the sides there. And just that quickly we have a sort of embossed looking letter there. Could be a little neater, but you get the idea. Back over here, the palette can be changed easily. There's a gold palette on the disk. Let's load that and say change color, use brush palette, and we get quite a different look there. Let's say pick up this as a foreground color, Shift R, and that could be just a blank where you could write whatever you wanted. It could be a business card, it could be a check, it could be whatever your imagination lets you make it. And remember how in VidZeen 1 we used animated foreground objects and F5 to make animated shadows. Well, this would be an excellent background for that. So big block font gives you the ability to make a background which is both a background and a text message. Here I've made a little animation in interlace resolution which looks okay because the font resizes well, and the font looks pretty good on a generated over a video background too. And as we noted before, it rotates pretty well, so we can make the letter roll. Well, let's get back to the original letter. Block font is versatile enough that I suppose we could make a whole tape on it, but let me just show you one more thing about it, and that's how I made these letters roll, because that might be useful for not only block font but other things as well. Press Y, turn it upside down, and holding down Alt, press Z. That's the trick to this, is picking up the brush in the right place, in the lower right hand corner in this case. Let's set the number of frames to about 16, and stamp our what looks like a 6 now, I guess, upside down. Stamp it down, Shift M. Here are the settings left over from when I made the letter move forward and backward. Change the count to 16. We don't need to ease in and out. We don't need any Z distance, and we don't want it to come to us. We want it to go from the first frame. The only thing we need to set really here is 90 degrees as our Z angle, and we tell it to draw. Okay, the drawing is finishing up. Let's press 6. And we see what we have. This is really 1/4 of a complete roll. All you'll have to do the other parts is repeat this 3 more times, each time using Alt-Z to pick up the brush in a different corner. Here's a little animation reminding you that we'll be talking about Palette Play version 2 a little later in the tape. Notice that the animation of the rolling letter is smaller than the one we were working with earlier. The way to resize an anim brush as you draw with it is to enter perspective before you're going to to draw, and then hold down Control and the left Amiga button and move the mouse down to make it smaller. Press U, or up to make it larger. That's how you resize an anim brush. Now let's move on from block font to a different kind of background. The background picture here was generated by a program called Scene Generator, which is one of several such programs. Here we watch as Scene Generator renders a picture based on parameters I gave it. One good thing about Scene Generator is that it can draw in interlace resolution, 32 colors, and full overscan, which means that we can use the pictures it draws as backgrounds in video work by combining them, for instance, with other pictures. So here back in Deluxe Paint, I've loaded the ship picture from your disk. Notice how the palette, or second 16 colors, are shaded as we usually have them. I'm going to start picking this up as a brush. Here I've loaded a background picture from your disk. Notice that the colors in this are quite a bit different than they were in the ship brush, which we'll load now. And remap. And it does a pretty good job of remapping, except that some of the brush is remapped to the background color. So if we say pick, we can see which color is pretty close to that. Then draw a rectangle in the color we need. Pick up the brush, stamp it down, and finally, using fill, erase, and we have filled in those areas that had been remapped to the background color. Let's jump over, press H, and equal sign to make it a little bigger, X, and we can put a nice ship down in our picture. Now let's say we'd like to add some text. We'll load a color font here, which is a column, one of the Cara color fonts. Press left mouse button to stamp it down, and say we want to type the word wait a second, that doesn't look too good, does it? Well, escape and P, and let's have another look at the palette of this picture, and notice that they are in ranges, or graded into ranges, which would help us when we want to make shadows. And there are really 4 different ranges here, not unlike the firework font palette, if you remember that. What Screen Generator does when you make a picture is allow you to not use one of these or more of these ranges in your picture if you don't want. So to show you this, let's change that to something quite different. And you see that when I made this picture, I told it not to use any browns in the picture, and it didn't. The only browns that appear are when we remapped the brush. So you have these colors to play with. The problem is we don't want them here, we need them over here, which is where the colors in color fonts reside, in these colors. So let's, of course we're going to use remapping, as you might have guessed, to do that. Let's move these one at a time over here. Okay, we have those all copied. Now change, and hold your eyes here if you, I know the saturation is bright, but what we have to do, of course, is change these colors into colors which would never appear in our picture, so that when the remapping is done, all the picture colors in the picture will be remapped to these. So pick up tiny brush, load the picture again, change color, use brush palette, change color, remap. Deluxe Paint goes through the process of remapping the picture to these colors, which we know are in the picture, and not to these, which we want to use for our color fonts. Now when we select a color font, and it says, you want to use this font's palette? Yes. These colors are open to be used. Over here on the spare page, press caps lock and stamp that down, and oops. Press escape, caps lock again, and H, Shift Y, and O equals once to make them a little larger. Let's put this right under that and jump back over and stamp it down. And we have a picture with the title. I might mention here that if you're interested in purchasing Scene Generator, it's available from the address you see here. If you're like me, you may often find yourself needing extra colors, especially when you're using pictures from other people. There are several ways to sort of shake those extra colors loose, and one of them is to use a program like Butcher or another picture processing program, but often the same thing can be done with Deluxe Paint. Let's say we still need some more colors. We can look and see that if we're willing to give up some of the detail in the ocean and the sky, we could get rid of these blues. So let's have a look at a feature of Deluxe Paint that we really haven't seen too much of yet in these tapes. Hold down Shift and press the tilde key, the sort of backward apostrophe key in the upper left corner of your Amiga keyboard, and let's use a stencil. First, click on any of the blue colors that have blue in them, and that would lock them out. But what we really want to do is lock all the others out, so click on Invert, which just reverses the thing. Press Make, and we'll automatically be in stencil mode. Press B to pick up a brush, and press down the right mouse button. Start up there to get all the water. And what do you know? We pick all the water up as a brush and remove it. Press dot. You can see that it's all nice, neatly removed. If we do the same thing with the sky, we can see we can change these colors to anything we want them to be. Now they don't appear in our picture anymore. And so we can go back and do the remapping steps we just did earlier and use these colors for something else. Here we're back to the point where just the water has been removed and the sky remains. S means stencil's still on. Press that tilde key to get rid of it, and jump to the spare page. And I know you can't see very well here, but there's that blue in the lower right hand corner. Select it, press F10 and fill the whole page. Jump over from the spare, merge and back. Using down Control and the arrow keys, let's move it around to where we can see that sky pretty well. And let's use changing the palette to create a different kind of effect. As we watch this finish, you may have guessed we're not in Deluxe Paint anymore. We're in version 2 of Palette Play, which is included on your disc. Let's make dawn come rosy-fingered over the Caribbean there, or whatever that place is, and escape gets us back to the CLI. Palette Play has some significant new features, which let's have a look at by starting the program over. Notice the addition of the last line, escape for quick start. If we press escape here, we can skip over these next series of questions. We press return, and it instructs us to enter the file name of the script file. That isn't new, but palette map is new. This feature allows us to choose any color or a combination of colors as those which will be affected by the operations of the program. Pick list is new. It allows us to load a list of pictures rather than simply one picture at a time, so we can have a slideshow fading between them, or we can do a different sort of an animation, as actually the sunset thing there we just did was. And we select 32 here because there are 32 colors, position it where we want it, and we can demonstrate some other new keys. W fades to red, Shift W fades back from red, D fades to green, Shift D fades back from green, C fades to blue, Shift C fades back from blue, in this case to a slightly different picture. This one includes the stars and the lights, which were drawn in the background color, and that gives us the opportunity to demonstrate the 5 key. If we press the 5 key and then Shift Z, or rather Z, we fade to black, but the background color is not affected by the transformation. If we press 0, then once again all colors are affected. The 5 key and one other key are the basic keys to the sunset effect we did, and the other one is the pound key, the number key there above the 3. If we press it, we see that only certain colors which we selected as our map of colors are affected by the transformations now. So pressing space, we go back to the original picture, and we can do different things to the sky that we do to the sea and the land. If we press Shift R, we can make the sky a little brighter, a little bit more red. Press G to get rid of some of the green. Now press number sign again, and we can take green out of the whole picture overall. Take out some red too. Press number again to just affect the sky. Put in some more red. Take out some more green. Put in a little bit more blue. Press number key again and take out some more green from the sea and the land. Press it again and put some red, some more red and blue, and take out some green, and then number again to darken the land, and you can begin to see the sunset effect. It's kind of hard to talk while figuring out which keys to press, and of course it's hard to press them exactly the same way twice in a row, and that's where a palette script comes in handy. I've included on your disk B the script file which controlled the sunset effect for you to look at as an example. What happens in a script file, and we see here the beginning and end of that script file, is that palette play interprets each character by character as if you had pressed those keys. And so if we look at this, we can see easily what's happening. Remember the 5 key, it tells palette play don't allow the background color to be affected, by any of the operations. Next, lowercase g takes out some green. Then the number key tells palette play only affect those colors in our palette map, and then it takes a G and takes out a little bit of green from the sky. Goes back to the whole picture, takes out some green, goes back to just the sky, and here the capital letters, of course, mean it's going to add some R red and B blue to make the sky a little brighter than the land. The land, we want it to darken more quickly. Go back, and once again we take out some red and green from the land, giving this will gradually make the land and the water look bluer, and so forth until this lowercase l. And what that means is it tells palette play to load the next picture in the picture list. And in the case of the sunset effect, that happened to be a picture with a few more white dots sprinkled around for the lights and stars, and it goes on. And here, these aren't part of the actual file. These are to indicate to you that the middle of it's missing. We're just going to look at the start and the end here. Capital S means slow down. Toward the end here, it seemed to be going too fast, so I told it slow way down. We know what the number key means, and we're taking more red out of the sky. You know, the sky was very red as the sun had set, and so we're gradually slowing down, adding some blue, taking out some red, and finally darkening everything by taking out all that's left, the red and the blue. It's easy to create your own script file. All you need is a text editor. Don't use a program like WordPerfect, because a real word processor will normally embed hidden codes or whatever. Use any text editor, and there are a lot of such programs. It's easy to do. Just put in the characters as if you're typing the keys. And at the risk of intimidating all you out there with CLI phobia, this is really not unlike a computer program, a very simple computer program where palette play, acting as an interpreter, takes your commands and executes them one at a time. The second kind of text file is the palette map, and it always consists of only ones and zeros. And the position of the character, as well as the character itself, is important. If you have a 32 color picture, palette map will have 32 characters. If you have a 16 color picture, palette map will have only 16 characters, and so on. Let's jump over here, and the way it works is that the character number corresponds to a color number. Character position 0, the first character, corresponds to color 0. Character position 1 corresponds to color 1, and so on. And so if we want to affect, for instance, colors 15 through 20, positions 15 through 20 in the character map, if you will, are designated with 1s. If we want to tell palette play that we want to affect the first 3 colors in the palette, 0, 1, and 2, we place 1s in the 0, 1, and 2 positions in the text file. It may seem a little bit difficult to grasp at first, but really it's fairly simple. Consider the text file a map of the colors, and if you want to change a particular color, just change the character in that map from a 0 to a 1. The last kind of text file to look at is pick list, which is a list of pictures for palette play to load. Obviously this isn't the picked list for the sunset effect, it is the picked list for the next demonstration. In a little slideshow here, we use a few images from projects we've done to demonstrate a little bit of the fancy fade work that palette play can do. Using the pause button on your VCR, the sample script on disk B, and your own pick list, you can use this as a slideshow as well. Here's the script file I used, and I'll quickly touch on some of the characters to tell you what they mean. The lowercase c, of course, fades out the previous picture. The underlined character tells palette play to pause until you hit a key. In this case, you can pause and put your VCR on pause at the same time, then load in another picture. Capital L loads in the next picture from pick list, and the lowercase c again fades it out to a color, in this case blue, and pauses. And then you would hit pause, so your VCR would begin taping again, and it would be faded back up then to the picture. This kind of thing is continued over and over. Here we see that the number keys are used to fade in only part of the colors at a time. In this case, X fades in to white. And finally, at the end, we have a fade out, and the semicolon character is used to tell palette play to reset the picture list. That way we can run the whole slideshow over again without restarting the program. Here we've changed the palette play script so that we first load each picture with a lowercase l, which displays it in the previous picture's palette, and then load it with its own palette to provide a different sort of a fade or transition. Well, we can see that all these new features make palette play lots of fun to mess around with. But for now, let's get back to Deluxe Paint, where I've loaded another scene generator picture. Using stencil, I took out the sky and the water, replaced the water with solid blue. Didn't use any grays in the picture. That means when I load the cloud picture from your disk B, I can make a stencil and block out all the colors that aren't gray or blue, and we'll be we can draw our sky back behind the mountain. Notice though that it's hard to tell if we're covering it all or not when you're holding the brush in the center, so press Alt X and Alt Y to hold the brush in the upper right hand corner, and we can just pop that right up there, stamp it down, and make sure that press dot again, it's covering the background, and it doesn't look too bad. You can also animate using while using stencil. So let's set the number of frames to 50. Press Shift M, and let's tell it we want to go 50 to the right. That will make a nice smooth move of the clouds because it will move 1 pixel per frame. And let's see what the preview looks like. Looks pretty good, so let's draw it. And while we're waiting for it to draw, let's go back to the camera. Palette play is a lot like block font. There are so many things you could do with it. You could probably make a tape just on it by itself, but not all of you may be that interested in palette play, so soon we'll begin to talk about the pinball. Excuse me, but it sounds like the wind is coming up out on Lake MBZ. I took a look here real quick. You know, I don't mind the weather that much. I just hope Mount Muncie doesn't erupt again. Woo. First part there was done with palette play. Remember, you can mix L and capital L, and lowercase a and capital A in your script to combine animations with loading single pictures. Second part was done with Deluxe Paint. The rain is an anim brush on your disk B. You can change the wind direction with X, and of course you can remap it if you need to. Back here in Deluxe Paint, it's fun to think of all the ways we could make that volcano effect, but I'll leave that to your creativity. Here's the moving cloud animation all done. It's always interesting how much you can do by changing just the palette. Remember the second flash of lightning there in the first part of the storm. Let me stop that by pressing space. I did that simply by brightening all the colors in the land colors over here. You can do that with the palette requester, doing them one at a time, but a faster way is to click on one that you want to change and use the right bracket key and the keys on the numeric keypad. The 7, 8, 4, 5, 1, and 2 key will change the colors. If I press 8, 5, and 2 simultaneously, it brightens that color. Press the right bracket key to step down to the next one. You can see how fast we can change those colors. We missed that one. So again, we press 8, 5, 2 simultaneously 3 times, and we brighten that color as well. One final trick about palettes: if you change the palettes a lot, you'll often find that you want to compare two palettes. I'm going to load the original picture as a brush, so it will have in it the colors of the original palette. Press dot and then say change color, use brush palette, or back to the original colors. Now let's say change color, restore palette, and if we press A, we quickly and easily jump back and forth, and we can compare the two palettes easily. And press A one more time, and before going on to something entirely different, let's press stencil here and use this picture for one more effect as a background, and you'll remember this effect from tape 1. Demos of some commercially available graphics. I hope they'll give you some ideas, particularly you wedding videographers. These are commercially available, and hopefully by the time you get this tape, you'll be able to give you information about where to get them. So check the printed material that came along with your package for information. Back in Deluxe Paint, it's time to begin the last major project of this tape. And before we do, I want to look at this palette we're going to use very closely. It's a little bit different than the ones we've used so far. But first, I have here in my hand a couple of questionnaires that were sent in by people who saw tape 1, and they have some very good comments. Both people like tape 1 and plan to buy the tape you're seeing now. And the first man, Scott, who works for the federal government at a National Wildlife Refuge and uses his Amiga in that. It was a very interesting questionnaire. To quote from it, he says, "I realize it's difficult to squeeze the world of DP3 onto a 2-hour tape, but I found it difficult to follow your example step by step on my computer, even with pause, especially changes to the palettes. Most of us can probably afford to buy more tapes if it's easier to follow along. I will." And he has an excellent point. Many people, that's the main comment a lot of people have made, that I go too fast. And I try to cram too much onto a 2-hour tape. A doctor from Staten Island who uses his Amiga in community access and medical education. He put it rather more bluntly when he said the tape was too long and it was difficult to stay awake through it. Well, I apologize to those of you who have a hard time with the tape because I try to cram so much into it. And because of that, maybe I want to slow down here for a moment and take a real close look at this palette before we go on. At first, when we started making pinball animations here at MBZ, we used all 32 colors usually, and we changed the palette from one pinball machine, if you will, to the next, depending upon what kind of thing we were including in it. We learned to stick as much as possible to the same 16 colors. This allowed us to use images as brushes from one pinball machine to the next. It also means, since there are only 16, we can use the images in high resolution, and later on we can create a sort of second palette which we'll need to do the light bulb backflash effect we'll show you later. For now, notice that the different color groups are ranged from light to dark. The basic white really also serves as a light flesh color, and then we have a range of flesh colors, and we have a three color range from gray to black. We have a warm colors in a 3-color range, 3 blues, and 2 greens. Can we still create shadows with the palette ranged this way? Well, press Shift R and draw a rectangle and pick it up, and we'll see. Press F5, then the left mouse button, and we see that no, it doesn't work, obviously, because press dot. As we go down to the next color, the black becomes yellow and so on, and it doesn't work. But it is still possible to have shadows if we avoid using the darkest colors. Press Shift R again, and let's get another rectangle. Pick it up as a brush, stamp it down, press F2 and the right bracket key to go down to the next lowest color. Right bracket key again. But let's skip this darkest color. Skip over to the gray, down to the next shade of gray. Skip the black, stamp down the yellow, the orange. Skip the red, the light blue, the medium blue. Skip the darkest blue and put down the darkest green. Now let's pick it up as a brush. Press F5 and dot, and we see that it does work. It does create shadows. Press comma to pick up a color. Shift R, and we have the illusion of a rectangle casting the shadow there. Unfortunately, that limits us to just 10 colors if we don't use the darkest colors. But the good news is we don't have much need for shadows in a pinball backflash. What we really do need are lights, and we'll show you how to do those as soon as we've used the colors in our palette to create a pinball backflash. Here I've loaded the magician brush from your disc, stamping down, but the theme of the pinball machine won't be magic, it'll be gambling. Use B and the right mouse button to get rid of his magic wand. Gambling has to do with money. Money has to do with business, and all kind of commercials and ads can use a theme of money. For instance, let's say don't gamble with your profits or something like that. Press Y to turn his hand upside down. We're going to have him holding something. Period and D and M, and change his thumb so it looks like it's on the other side of his hand there. Also, press M again and erase his forefinger using the right mouse button. Pick up black then using comma, and move his forefinger down like that. Pick up the flesh color, fill it in, and the D and dark color to put the shading underneath it. pick it up and jump over to the spare page where I've stamped down a brush from your disc. Female admirer, remember all the old pinball machines had to have shapely female admirers. I'd stamp him down about there. Back on the spare page, erase that, and we'll load the other female admirer, or the one we can use for that. After some changes, stamp her down, press B twice, use the right mouse button to get rid of her arms, which will only be in the way for our pinball backflash in this case, and press dot, pick up black, and we'll put her arm down to her side where it won't be in the way. Remember to make sure that have that fill solid black so that when we pick the flesh color up and fill it, it won't run out on the rest of the screen. Press D and period, and then M, and I'll fix that little place there and make it look like her arm goes with the rest of her. And pick her top part up as a brush, jump over and stamp her down over here on the edge as our second spectator. Press dot. Now we need our gambling table. Pick out one of the smaller or square drawing tools, and you're drawing with black, and press Q. That gives us a curve. Maybe first though we better fix the background in case we want to move this table after it's drawn, just in case. So click down over here way at the far edge, then while you're still holding down on the left mouse button, move it straight over to the right and let up. Then bring back to the middle or wherever we want, and by moving up and down we change the curve. Stamp that down. Pick up the dark green down there at the bottom. Press F and fill. And of course, since we fixed the background, it fills right over the other stuff, the old stuff, and fills in where we had the curve. Now we have a nice table there, a surface. Let's make it a little lower though. Press B, and with the right mouse button, pick it up and scoot it down a little bit. Up there. I just noticed something though. We have two brunettes. One of these, I mean, if this is going to be gambling, one of these should be blonde, right? So let's experiment a little bit. Before we do though, we probably should save this somehow. If we don't like our changes, we can have it back. An easy way to do that is copy it to the spare page. So we might have something over there that we want. Let's make sure. No, it doesn't matter if we copy over her. We won't need her anymore. So jump back, press Shift J, and when we press J to jump back and forth to the spare, we see that yes, it has been copied over to the spare. So to change her hair color, we have to hey, danger! Wake up, you sleepyheads. It's time to tell you about a potentially dangerous situation in Deluxe Paint. When you have that caps lock light lit and press J, Deluxe Paint takes that as a capital J and copies to the spare page. So for instance, let's say you've taken a couple hours to make a real good screen, and then you jump over to make your title on the spare page. You enter caps, put in caps lock, then get your title typed up, pick it up as a brush, and press J. It's going to copy that page over onto the picture you spent a couple hours creating. So unless you want to lose your work sometime, remember that caps lock plus J equals danger. Well, get yellow, press F. Let's see what she looks like as a blonde, and something sort of missing there, and what it is the black outline that we have on these cartoon style pictures. So to get that, press Shift and the tilde key and get in the stencil requester. Lock that yellow, invert the thing so it is the only color that we're not going to be, or that we can draw on. Press Make B, and it doesn't look like we picked up anything, but that's because it's back behind the background color. We can't affect it either when it's locked. So press tilde to turn off stencil, and we see that we picked up just the yellow, comma to pick up black, O to outline, and great, we've outlined her hair, and she doesn't look too bad as a blonde there. I don't know though, pressing J we can compare the two. I think this one's better. Let's make our gambler a winner, get the yellow, and press Shift R, go up here in this free area and make a rectangle. Press M, D, or Q, and make a curve there. Stamp it down, pick it up, then get orange as the foreground color. Press F2, stamp it down up here, press Y, then F, pick up the yellow, fill that, back to Shift B and Y again, and let's pick out the dark gray. Holding Shift, we can move up and down real easily. Stamp that down, select black, press O to outline it, come down here and using Shift again, let's make a tall stack here and a shorter stack over here, and one back here, and then another one here, and go up here and erase this. Of course, we'll need some cards to fit in with our gambling theme, and we'll find that they can be just as much fun in Deluxe Paint as they can be in real life. I made this one using some stuff from the Borders discs in the Masterpiece Font collection, and I'm sure you could make one as good as this or better. Lots and lots of things we could do with cards, either for this pinball thing we're working on or for other effects. Let's press Shift tilde to get the stencil requester. Click out here on the darkest blue, invert it, press click on Make, and then B and the right mouse button, like we did with the hair a few moments ago. We'll get rid of the blue in there. Now click on the red, press Shift R, and we can put red into the areas where we had removed the blue from. Back in interlace resolution, if you want to get more ambitious about making some changes to these, pick up the white, Shift R, and you can blank any of these out. Start out from scratch, press U there, or pick up the blue. You can create your own backs. Let's press M. You want to be precise here and put the crosshairs right there in the inside corner. And if we still hold down the mouse button, we still have it by the same corner there, and we can start over here and create our own back. Could put a company logo there on the back of the cards. Press dot. This one looks pretty jaggy. Let's do a little bit of anti-aliasing. Select the orange, and you can anti-alias between the bright yellow and the dark blue, which I think makes it, those two colors make a nice combination. You can anti-alias between those with the orange, which particularly when you do this on your Amiga, you'll really notice a big difference in getting rid of the jaggies here. How well you can see it on this copy, I don't know, but press M. It makes quite a bit of difference. Well, let's look at, while we're talking about anti-aliasing, let's look at the way I did the diamond. The edge is here, going between the red and the white. I went from the dark to the light using the flesh tone shades to anti-alias. You can see that even better if I hold down Shift and press the key with the greater than symbol on it. That is the period key, which of course in Magnify brings you closer to the image. Let's press the key with the comma and the less than sign and go back, and M. And of course there's always a joker in the deck. It never ceases to amaze me how many interesting and fun things you can do in the Deluxe Paint with something as simple as a playing card. And we're not finished yet. Now we add the playing card to our pinball background. Press H a couple of times and minus a couple of times to get it about the right size to fit into his hand. What we're going to do is use perspective to make him a hand of cards, and we want to, of course, to go behind his hand. There are a couple, 3 ways to do that. In the last tape, we talked about saving a brush of his hand and then stamping over when we're done. Earlier in this tape, we talked about using fixed background. There's a 3rd way to accomplish it, and that is to use stencil. And click on the background color, invert it so that all the others are locked out, and then click on Make, and we see that it goes right behind his hand there. Let's hold down Shift and press B to bring the card back to its normal size, and just to demonstrate that when we enter perspective, which we'll do now by pressing the Enter key, not the carriage return key, but the Enter key on the numeric keypad, we can do many of the same things while in perspective that we can do in normal mode. Press H, H again, minus, minus, and we can resize in perspective mode the same way that we do in normal mode. Now let's try tilting the card to the left by pressing numeric keypad 1. Tilt it to the left. Stamp it down. Press U. I think it look better outlined. We don't have to go back to normal mode. Press O, and we outline while we're still in perspective mode. Now press 2 to tilt it back to the right. Stamp it down. Then 3 to bring it back to its original upright position. And D to get back into drawing mode. Now maybe we'd like to put some cards on the table in front of him. Press the tilt key to get out of stencil, because these of course will be laying in front of everything, and holding down Control, press the down arrow to get some room here. And again, press the numeric keypad Enter key to get into perspective. Notice the crosshairs there in the center. Let's move those because we want to change the point of perspective, which the lines of perspective go back to. So press the numeric keypad dot and stamp down here, which is where we will want the lines of perspective to meet. Now try pressing 7, or just holding it down, and you see the card lay backward, and you see we're going to have them press 8 to reverse the effect until we get it where we want it, and we'll have the cards. Press U. I forgot something. Since the cards are closer to us than those, they should be bigger, shouldn't they? So once again, in perspective, we can do most of the things we can do in ordinary painting mode. Press equal a couple times to make them bigger. Stamp it down. And we have cards laying on the table there in front of him. Press D to go back to regular drawing mode. And let's say these unseen opponents here to either side of him, they should have cards too. Press Z and then H and Shift Y. Turns the card on its side, but it still isn't proportionally correct, so press Shift Z and resize it until it's about the same size as the other cards, but on its side rather. Press Enter, and we can put his opponent's cards down there at the side. Back in drawing mode, I've loaded up the Joker. Let's outline it in black and press Enter. So they'll have a colorful card laying down there too. Press D and turn this card on its side and enter perspective again, and then over here the opponent has a colorful card laying there too. Just barely see it. Press Control. Go down to see it a little bit better. Press D. As you create your own backflash, you probably could do a better job than I have done here, if only because you won't have to talk and paint at the same time. But there are some things about this that probably should be improved. For instance, we could anti-alias the cards and make them look quite a bit less jaggy, the way we normally anti-alias things. I've made some improvements and then saved the picture so that we can quickly get on with the job of finishing the backflash, and to do that job we'll need some more room. So I'm going to pick this up, top part of this up as a brush, press Shift K and move it down to the bottom. And I've loaded the picture, or the brush rather, of the score letter number window. Hold down Shift key so that we are putting that in on a horizontal line, and stamp down 5 of these windows. Press period for draw. Pick up the yellow color. Press equal a couple times to make the drawing tool larger. We better fix the background here too, because we may want to do this several times until we get it right. We want to make the title. And we'll just do this roughing it out and hand-drawn, if you will, hand-drawn letters. Pick them up as a brush. You only better do it using the right mouse button. You don't want to leave them down there. Select orange and outline them in orange a couple, 3 times. Select red. Outline them some more in red. I don't know, for a kind of a neon effect. And stamp them down. Press period and F10. For the background, we'll use a background similar to the one you saw in the animation at the beginning. Get right on that guy's nose and press jump, J, to jump over to the spare page. Press V and start drawing straight lines. 1, radiating out from the center. 2 and 3. We'll count them because you need an even number of straight lines to make this work. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be 6. I lost count already there, didn't I? 7, and 8. You don't want to make a thing look too symmetrical. We have 3 shades of blue. We'll just use the 2, and we'll use the bracket keys to jump back and forth between them. Press the left bracket twice to jump back to that lightest blue. Right bracket twice. Left bracket twice. Right bracket twice. And there we have a problem. We didn't get all the way up there. We see. So that will finish that up by pressing V and make that straight line go all the way to the edge of the screen, otherwise the fill won't work properly. And press D again, excuse me there, jump back over and select spare, merge in back, and we have a nice looking blue background. Of course, unfortunately, we cannot any longer see those nice looking perspective cards down on the table that we took so much trouble to make. So let's make a smaller version of this. Press B and pick up a piece of it. Jump back over to the spare page. Press minus once and stamp it down. You can pick up any hunk of the thing from anywhere. As long as you remember how many times you press minus, it's fairly easy to get it put back in the right place. You just have to repeat this over a few times. Here we have the finished smaller version, which is the pinball backflash is seen from a distance, as opposed to the close-up over here. It's always easier to start big and make things smaller, which is why we started out with this size. Let's stay in this size, and we'll put some flashing light bulbs behind this screen. To do that, we'll use F5 in something like the reverse of the shadow effect, and I've loaded the brush remap palette, and we'll change the color to that palette. Notice what's changed. Sort of spread out the colors so that in between each of the two colors that were contiguous, there is now inserted an area of the background color. That way we can use F5 by putting a brighter version of each color just below it, so that when we press the left mouse button, we will brighten anything that's under the brush at the time. So let's say change color, remap, and it will remap to the new palette. Now for the third and final transformation, load the palette brush pinball light palette, which I've already done. You don't have to remap because it has the colors filled in where the background colors were. And if we look at this, this is the old one we used to remap, this is the new one. Each color below it has a brighter version of itself, so that when we remap, or when we use F5 and stamp it down, the next color that it's stamped down to is going to be a brighter version of itself. I know this is all sort of hard to follow, but here in a second we'll see the results. After loading the light bulb picture from your disk, all you have to do is press P, make sure that the range is from color 1 up into the next to the last color. Press F5, and wherever we stamp down with the left mouse button, that will have a brightened area. So create an animation of about 6 frames, and on the second frame, press 2 to get to that second frame, lighten it using F5. Do that for about 3 frames. or 4 frames. Go back to Shift 1. Go back to the first frame by using Shift 1, then press 2. Step through there a few frames, and over here put another light bulb. And it's just that easy. When we press 4 to play it over and over, we see a couple flashing light bulbs. Spacebar to stop it. And here I've loaded from your disk the anim brush for the 0 or O, and it doesn't look like we've loaded anything, but if I put it up here to the window and press the 8 key, you can see it going around and around. 7 key reverses it backwards. Let's take a look at the settings of the anim brush, and we see that it's 21 frames long, and currently we're about in the middle when we have the complete character there. So let's make an animation 12 frames long. The current one is 6, and an easy way to do that, I've loaded this one, is to simply load it again, but instead of using load, use append, so that the animation is loaded in and appended to the end of itself, making a looping animation 12 frames long. That loops twice. Now let's press Shift 1, make sure we're on the first frame of the animation, and stamp that 0 down right in the middle of the letter window. Press U and go to Shift M. We want to stamp it down 11 times, which essentially will play the last half of our anim brush there in the window. Now let's go and load the anim brush for the number 1. And press Shift 1 to go to frame 1, stamp it down. Press U, Shift M, preview, and we can see that as the 0 moves away, the 1 is drawn. Actually, the first half of the 1 anim brush is drawn down. Press dot and Shift 1, and let's slow this down a little bit so that we can see what's going on a little better. Let's slow it down to 20. Okay, and press 5. And 2 to go back to the beginning. And 5. Here I have appended 2 more copies of our flashing animation to the end, and so we have a total of 23 frames. We're at frame 11. But of course, after that, the new frames don't have the 1, so press 1 to get back to it. Press G and B. Pick up the 1. Press 2. Stamp it down. Press U. Go to the Move Requester and tell it to stamp that 1 down on those last 12 frames. So that press 5, and we come to the end there with the 1 showing. Turn grid off. Let's go to Shift 1 and back to frame 1. Here I have loaded the 0 again, and let's go though about to frame 5 so that the 0 starts after the earlier one had. Stamp it down. Press U, Shift M. Tell it to draw it there 11 times so it moves up and disappears off. Back on frame 5, press G again. We of course still need that 0 in the previous frames so that it's there from the beginning. Oops, we went one too far. I'll press U. Have a look at, press G to get out of grid. Press 5. Now, let's go back now to frame 5. Of course, pressing 3 gets this go to frame requester. And from frame 5 on now, we'll stamp down the anim brush I just loaded, which is the $sign. And we'll stamp it down. Instead of 11, stamp it down for 21. So we'll see the whole thing roll over. That done, we go to frame 1, press 5, and we see the animation. Let's press 1 to go backward to the frame where we see the complete $sign. I've loaded the anim brush M. Stamp that down there, press U, Shift M, and just draw the last 11 frames of it so that it ends up on the last frame. Play it here. That's basically everything you need to know to use the pinball font. Some letters are included on your disc to mess around with. The complete font is available from us either on set 2 or a set sold separately, and either way it comes with some more pinball stuff you can have fun with. And where you can really have some fun is getting creative and rolling your own pinball font letters. And it isn't really that hard when you master the basics and you learn how to set up the brush handle, perspective center, and the move requester. Once you learn these, you can just animate the heck out of things. Let's try animating this card. Press Shift M, and for starters, let's set the X to 90 and see what that does. And it turns as if it had an axle going through the middle of it. Turn it a minus 90, it rotates the other way. Let's see what happens if we put it on the y-axis. Now the axle's running vertically through the middle of it. Same thing. Let's exit and change something. Let's change where we have the handle. Put it on the side. See what happens. Stamp it down. Shift M. Preview. And the handle then we see is like a hinge. You can imagine the brush is like a door, and that handle, wherever we put it, is going to turn it like a hinge. Let's we forgot to press U. That's bad. Shouldn't do that. Alt Z and put the hinge or the handle up at the top, and this all the time I'll press U, and 90 degrees on the X angle, and see it rotate away from us. Minus 90. Flies up toward us. Let's exit and press Enter and the decimal point and change the perspective center and see how that changes the way the card looks. Press D, stamp it down, Shift M, see the way that changes the way the card looks as it rotates. And it does change it a lot. So let's exit and press Enter and decimal point there on the numeric keypad to put our perspective center back in the center, and then D to get out of perspective, Alt Z to put our handle back in the middle. Then we'll stamp this down, press U, Shift M, and try to do the full rotation, the full roll of the card the way it came out of the gambler's hand. It looks pretty good. So let's draw it. It's all done drawing. Press period and 5 and well, that's what we get for trying to do 2D animation in a 3D world. We forget that the world has another side to it. We'll have to do this a little bit differently if we want this to make this look like a real card. What we really could do here is pick this up as an anim brush, save it, and load the other card, which by the magic of pause I have already done, and stamp it down. U, Shift M, draw, and then put on pause again. That's drawn, so press 4 and see this rotating. Probably guess what we're going to do. Shift B, Shift B. Shift B, of course, toggles between the two brushes, the regular brush and the anim brush. So let's press 2 to bring this down to right the middle there. And you can see we're at the place where it goes from there and then goes on past the midpoint, the 90-degree point. Now let's manipulate the anim brush in the same way by pressing 8, where it gets to the point where it's just over the edge. And then stamp it down. Press 2 to go to the next frame. Stamp it down, 2. Stamp it down. We could hold down Control and then left Amiga key to get the same effect, but as far as anim brush drawing, but we'll just go on this way, pressing 2. And we're done. Shift 1 to go to the beginning of the animation. Press 6. We see our card front and back, rotating back and forth. Now all we have to do is, starting at frame 1, pick it up as an anim brush, and before you click down, make sure you go through this and see if your rectangle is big enough to include the whole thing, because this comes out toward you and enlarges. So step through it, make sure it's all included in that area, and we'll begin to pick it up. Let's clear all the frames. Press Shift 2 to go to the last frame. Stamp it down, press U and Shift M, and get rid of that in X angle, and set the distance to minus 1400, 1400, and click on coming toward us, because we're in the last frame. We want to start in the background, move toward us. Let's see what that'll look like. And anything else we want to do interesting? Let's set the Y angle to 90 just to see what the heck will happen. Draw it. It's finished. Let's play it. Yeah, you know, people ask me, they say, Mike, that isn't Deluxe Paint because it's 3D, a thing you've done there, but Deluxe Paint can do 2D to simulate 3D, especially if you're working with flat surfaces, and a lot of things in the world are composed of flat surfaces. I made a list here: walls, doors, houses, pinball machines, playing cards, books. Maybe you remember our book from tape 1, and it's an example of the kind of thing you can do by animating several different flat surfaces and having them move in a coordinated way. Let's jump to frame 51. The complete book animation and all the parts you need to do it are available on our wedding disc set. And once you understand how to animate flat surfaces, you can make all kind of custom changes to the book. Press Escape to leave text mode. Pick that up. Press Z to turn it on its side and resize it just a little bit. Let's say we want to add a title to the spine of the book. The handle of the brush is important again, of course. We can use Alt-Z to move the handle over where we want it to be, which is right there on the left edge of the book. Let's press 3 again. Jump ahead to frame 91, and you'll see that is the point where the book has turned completely to face us. Frame 91. Jumping back to 51, we see that if we want our title to turn, we must start here and end up on frame 91, which is a difference of 40 frames. So let's stamp down our title, press U, them, and we see that we have set the count for 40. We're going to draw on 40 of the 168 frames of the animation. We're going to go backward in distance because obviously it does have to move this way, and the angle of Y is also changed to a minus number. And of course we're going to draw from this point forward. So let's start it drawing. And as it draws, it will turn the title at the same angle that the spine is turning. It's finished drawing, so let's set the range from 51 to 91, those frames that we changed. So it'll just play the frames in those in that range when we press 5. And there's our title, moving along with the spine. You may find you have to do some tinkering and some drawing by hand, but DPaint's animation capabilities are really fun and powerful when you learn and remember the basic concepts. This was done by leaving perspective on center, putting the brush handle at the very bottom, then in the move requester setting the X angle to 90, and stamping the brush down in the last frame, having it come toward you. By the way, I recommend these backgrounds. They're very professional. Have a look at them if you get the chance. This picture really doesn't do them justice. Now let's put some of our concepts into action. Imagine we're going to change the idea of the pinball machine a little bit, make it romantic about winning someone's heart. So let's pick this up, including the heart that I've drawn, jump over to the spare page and stamp it down. Use fill and the right mouse button to fill around it. Press M and B and pick up the brush, carefully making sure that you get all of it, but no more. Nothing from around the edges. That's important because we want to have the exact center as the brush handle. Now create an animation of 21 frames. And press 3 and go to frame 11. And stamp our heart. Well, before we do though, if we stamp it down, now we've been making a mistake. We have to set center perspective. So press enter and decimal point and put our perspective center right in the center of our frame there, and then without moving the mouse, press D and stamp our heart down. That's important. If we don't change the perspective center, we won't get good results. Press U, go to the move requester, and we can see that we want to draw, make that 10 frames. We want to draw to the point where we are. We want to have it move up and down 40 and at an angle of almost 90 degrees, and we want to come back from the distance and back toward us. So let's draw it, and we see that's exactly what happens. It comes toward us and stops on frame 11. Now let's go to the move requester again. We don't even have to stamp the heart down again. Now we want to go away from us, this time 11 frames, into the background, draw again, and it continues from frame 11 on to the end of the animation, moving away from us toward the top of the screen because of the way we set the move requester. This demonstrates everything: the move requester, the perspective, center, and the brush handle. Press 4. Now all we'd have to do is pick it up as an anim brush and it's ready to use. Well, I hope you haven't fallen asleep and that before the tape runs out I have enough time to say thanks for watching, and we hope you'll be around for tape number 3 because we still have some tricks up our sleeves.